Good afternoon. Toronto police are making a new appeal for tips in the disappearance of Nicole Morin, 40 years after the young girl went missing in Etobicoke.
Investigators are offering a reward of up to $50,000 for information that leads to her location. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live with the latest on this investigation. Janice.
Hi, Natalie. Yes, we're live right now outside the building where Nicole Morin once lived on the 40th anniversary of the little girl's disappearance. Now, Nicole Morin was just 8 years old when she went missing from an Etobicoke apartment building. This is an age-progressed sketch of what police believe she'd look like today, 40 years later. On July 30th, 1985, the little girl went missing from this apartment building near the 427 and West Mall. And today, Toronto police have returned to announce a $50,000 reward for information leading to the whereabouts of the missing woman. Nicole was last seen at around 11 a.m. 40 years ago today. She'd left her apartment to meet a friend for a swim, but never arrived. Despite an extensive investigation, the largest that had ever occurred in our city, Nicole has never been found. Still, police say all hope is not lost, saying all it takes is one piece of new information to make a difference.
Imagine that this is your child. Imagine that you are part of a community that ensures that children are protected, and if they go missing, that we can find them right away. And don't lose hope. Time has passed, yes, but Nicole is counting on us.
I have hope that she will be found, that somebody will finally come forward. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that somebody knows something. Whether it's somebody that was directly involved or somebody that knows who was directly involved and has a small bit of information, there is no insignificant information.
Now, police also want to remind the public that there is no waiting time to report a person missing. So if a child or vulnerable person disappears, you should contact 911 right away. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Hamilton police are investigating 2 reports of shots fired last night. The first happened near Kenilworth at Roxborough Avenue just before midnight. Police say this was the second report of shots fired last night, but they believe the 2 shootings are unrelated. The second shooting happened in Stony Creek near Battlefield Drive and Robb Avenue just after 10:30 last night. Police are asking residents in both areas to review video footage and contact police or Crime Stoppers if they have any information.
Sentencing submissions are expected today for the teen girl found guilty of manslaughter in a fatal swarming attack on a homeless Toronto man. The teen is one of 8 girls who were arrested and charged in the death of Kenneth Lee following the December 2022 attack. In May, the judge found her not guilty of second-degree murder, but guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter, saying the Crown had not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the girl dealt the fatal blow to Lee or had the state of mind required for murder. She was 14 years old at the time of the attack.
Well, following a developing story out of Pearson Airport after a small plane experienced difficulties while landing this morning. Peel police say just after 8:30, the plane experienced mechanical issues but landed safely. There's minor damage to the private plane, but no injuries have been reported. Fire and police remain on scene, and the search for answers around what took place is now underway. That includes investigations by both police and aviation authorities. Officials at Pearson shared their own update, writing in part, a private aircraft experienced an issue with its landing gear after touching down at Toronto Pearson this morning. It managed to taxi down the runway before coming to a stop near an intersection. 2 crew were on board and no injuries were reported. Flights continue to arrive and depart on 2 of the runways as normal, but passengers may experience some delays as a result of the temporary closure of 2 runways. Transport Canada and the Transportation Safety Board are aware.
Still ahead on CTV News at noon, the Bank of Canada is holding its policy rate steady at 2.75%. We'll have more on the central bank's rate decision coming up a little later in the newscast. But first, we're nearing the start of August, and that means the Canadian National Exhibition is just around the corner. The X is one of the city's largest seasonal employers.
Doors open today for those who want to work at the CNE. And that's where we find our Jessica Smith at the Enercare Center. Jess, I'm sure there must be a lot of people down there.
Nathan, a lot of people, the mood is cautiously optimistic. Speaking to CNE staff and the folks in line, they've been lining up since about 6 a.m. There are a record 54,000 people registered for about 5,000 jobs, and people are going to find out on the spot if they were hired or not. Now, as far as what jobs people are looking for, it ranges, including openings for positions for cashiers, retail associates, game attendants, food service staff, midway operators, and information guides. The CNE says about 1,000 roles have already been filled. Stats Canada's June 2025 labor force survey showed that youth unemployment hit about 14.2%, up 0.7 percentage points year over year. The lineup wraps around the inside of the Enter Care Center here for those who are pre-registered, and there is a separate line for those who didn't register or didn't know they had to register beforehand. And for everyone in line I spoke to today, they know the odds, but they are remaining hopeful.
There's some really exciting opportunities. And as I say, we're hiring 5,000 people today. That's a lot of folks. And these are exciting opportunities that help them engage in a myriad of ways with people and demonstrate skills that are going to set them up.
I wanted a job, and I found a video online, and I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. But I didn't know we had to register, so.
Really excited, actually. I've been waiting for the past months, and finally I'm ready for the opportunity.
But I've never been to the CNE. This will be my first because I just came to Canada 2 years ago. Yeah.
The job fair here is open until 2 p.m. The exhibition itself begins August 15th and runs through to September 1st. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Smith. Natalie, I'll send things back inside to you.
Thank you, Jess. More news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. It was a bit overcast out there this morning, but certainly still humid, and that heat warning is still in effect. Lindsay Morrison is here with a closer look at the current conditions. Lindsay.
Well, Natalie, the heat warning's starting to come to an end for some parts of southern Ontario, and that's an indication of the change that is about to happen once we get beyond this afternoon. It is still hot and humid out there. 26 degrees right now, feels more like 31, so not as humid as it's been, but still worth pointing out. You can see Durham region, areas north of Toronto, no longer in this heat warning. Neither are communities in extreme southwest Ontario, but Toronto and around the Golden Horseshoe toward Niagara Falls still going to feel quite hot this afternoon. Once again, we still have light winds for today. We have seen a little more in the way of cloud, and there's a bit of haze out there today. You might notice it even more so as the day goes on. Here's your day at a glance. 31 degrees is going to feel like 38 at the height of this afternoon. We do have a chance of a quick passing shower, and we're going to be talking about air quality over the next couple of days here. Full look at your forecast is coming up. For now, Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. New data is outlining how hard Canada's cap on foreign student visas is hitting Conestoga College.
There has been a significant drop in international enrollment as the college cuts both jobs and programs. CTV's Alexandra Hollick has the details.
Just over 8,500 international students are enrolled at Conestoga College this semester, a drastic drop from more than 22,600 last spring.
We can see the difference in the number of students that we're seeing on site. So I'm not surprised.
Vicky Poirier is the president of a local union representing full-time and part-time support staff at the college, a sector that saw around 180 jobs slashed earlier this year.
Some of that work isn't gone. It's there now, and it's unfortunately being absorbed by our members.
She says the college is moving backwards by cutting back in areas that need the most support.
Our writing consultants, our scheduling area, our student success advisors, those are student services. Those are roles that provide support to students.
As for whether the cuts were warranted,
we don't know where things are at right now. So we can't even say that the cuts that were made to our job force were supported.
But as international enrollment falls, the number of domestic students is on the rise. The college reporting a 28% increase in domestic enrollment this spring, with nearly 3,500 students. Fall confirmations are up by almost 15%, College President John Tibbetts says in a statement to CTV News. We will continue adjusting operations to enrollment and remain optimistic for the future.
It'll be interesting to see how the areas and the campuses look in September. I mean, I don't think our students are going to get the services or the quality and the quantity of services that were available before July.
Alexandra Hollick, CTV News.
As Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre looks to secure a new seat in the House of Commons, he took part in a by-election debate last night in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot.
Look, I'll be honest, having a leader of a political party as your local member of parliament is a trade-off. On the one hand, the leader, in truth, lives in hotel rooms. At the other side, though, is that leader can bring a very powerful megaphone to the local issues of the community.
I firmly believe that Monsieur Poilievre is too busy with his own personal ambitions to give a rat's backside about us.
10 candidates took part in the debate, although more than 200 have registered to run for the seat. Contenders answered a range of questions about immigration, healthcare, agriculture, and the economy. The by-election was triggered when elected MP Damien Couric resigned so Poilievre could run in his place after he lost his own Ottawa area seat in the spring election. The by-election is set for August 18th. Well, all eyes were on the Bank of Canada this morning as it made its latest announcement on interest rates.
As economists had forecast, the bank held rates where they've been since March at 2.75%. Officials say trade tensions with the United States played a role, but weren't the only factor they took into consideration.
Uncertainty about U.S. tariffs on Canada is still high. Discussions between Canada and the United States are ongoing, and U.S. policy remains unpredictable. Second, while U.S. tariffs are disrupting trade, so far Canada's economy is showing some resilience. And third, inflation is close to our 2% target, but we see evidence of underlying inflation pressures.
The bank's July report outlined 3 potential scenarios on where the economy may be headed, but acknowledged the predictions are based on several assumptions at this stage. Ontario's premier responded quickly to the lack of a rate cut on X, writing, "He is shocked by this decision as we stare down economic uncertainty that's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk. It's never been more important to stimulate economic growth and keep Canadians working." Ford goes on to say, rather than wait around and let President Trump's tariffs do even more damage to our economy, the Bank of Canada needs to cut interest rates now. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem said interest rate decisions are made independently of the political process and based on their best judgment of the interest rate setting to fulfill the bank's mandate.
I would underline that the experience of the last few years has really highlighted just how much Canadians don't like inflation. We will support the economy through this period of upheaval. But at the same time, we are going to make sure that an inflation problem, a tariff problem, does not become an inflation problem.
Now let's get to the reasons why the bank has decided to leave the rate as it is. BNN Bloomberg Marella Fernandez joins us now with more on that. Marella, what factored in, and is there any hope for a rate reduction maybe later this year?
Yeah, Nathan, there is some hope. I mean, that's not ruled out and hasn't been ruled out by the Bank of Canada, Governor Tiff Macklem. There are a couple of things to take into account. You heard him talk about the uncertainty still being high as a result of the tariffs. And that means the bank, again, has to consider several different scenarios, not just one look forward, because so much could change. The trade deadline for a deal between Canada and the U.S. is actually on Friday, so we could see things upend even as quickly as 48 hours from now. But a couple of things to take into consideration. The resilience of the economy is there. That is something that has been pointed out to as very good news. The effects of the American tariffs so far are less severe than feared. Remember, on Liberation Day, Donald Trump held up his big chart, and there were double-digit tariff rates for nations around the world. So that sparked a lot of fear. But as things unwound, people are seeing the consequences not hit as hard. So all of that is good news. But remember, and consumer business sentiment, I should add, is also coming back. But remember, because there are so many different scenarios, tariffs staying the same, tariffs going up, tariffs dropping. There are so many different factors that the bank has to consider that they really want to wait again to see how some of that unfolds in the next couple of months before they make a decision. But they do say they expect that the inflation rate will stay at about 2% if things stay the same as they are today.
But with the uncertainty, what might economic growth make that look like for the rest of 2025?
Yeah, so they do expect growth. So that's the good news, because we did have a contraction in the last quarter. They expect growth to hit about 1%. Now, remember, what could happen here is tariffs send prices up. That's pressure on inflation. But then you have weakening demand that could offset that, and then we could still squeeze out some growth. But again, this is a scenario based on tariffs sort of staying the same where they are right now to get that kind of growth. The bank will look at a number of factors over the next couple of months to try and determine the way forward. For example, if there could be a rate cut. They'll look at whether some of the tariff expenses, the extra cost, will be passed on to the consumer. Right now, Nathan, some of the shippers and the retailers, they've been absorbing that cost, so the consumer hasn't been hit as hard. But as this goes longer, they could very well get hit. They also want to take a look at spending by consumers and businesses to see if they open up their wallets a little bit more towards the end of the year, because that will change the scenario as well. The next rate announcement, Nathan, is September 17th.
All right. We're going to have to wait for that. BNN Bloomberg, Morella Fernandez, thank you.
Thank you.
We're now just days away from the August 1st deadline for a trade deal with the U.S.
The negotiators are down to the wire, and the roller coaster ride has already taken its toll. But the U.S. ambassador to Canada says he is hopeful a deal is coming. CTV's Abigail Beeman now on the tense wait and signs of what's to come.
A government source tells CTV News there's a good level of optimism about Minister Dominic LeBlanc's next D.C. trip, and discussions will still center on trying to get a deal before the Friday deadline.
I'm hopeful that a number of additional irritants, maybe on both sides, will be addressed.
While the American ambassador told a Winnipeg audience he's hopeful about a deal in the coming days, and Pete Hoekstra makes it sound easy.
We could hammer out a deal, and we would still have time to get coffee and a donut at Tim Hortons before lunch.
My life is full of questions. Meanwhile, prices are going up from household product giant Procter & Gamble, expecting about $1 billion hit from Donald Trump's tariffs.
In the long term, this direction will weaken the free world more than it will help it, and it will, I think, ultimately weaken the United States as well. So I think it's unfortunate. But
Canada. What about Canada? I don't know what they're feeling now at this point.
In an interview, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, LeBlanc's main point of contact, said the European Union's deal was all about protecting their auto, semiconductor, and pharmaceutical markets, warning
President Trump is going to come out in the next 2 weeks with his pharmaceutical policy, and it is going to be higher. Basically, if you are not building your plant in America where we pay for pharmaceuticals, you are going to pay a massive tariff.
With that Friday deadline looming, Canadian officials and the American ambassador are messaging optimism just days after President Trump said he hasn't had much luck with Canada and there may not be a deal at all. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney is meeting virtually with his cabinet today to discuss the state of trade negotiations with the U.S. Carney said Monday that Canada's negotiations with the U.S. are in an intense phase after President Donald Trump clinched a critical agreement with the European Union. Trump told reporters last week that Canada wasn't a priority ahead of his August 1st deadline to make trade deals. The minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade, Dominic LeBlanc, is in Washington today, meeting with officials.
And this comes as U.S. President Donald Trump says he will impose a 25% tariff on goods from India. He also said that an additional import tax will apply because India purchases military equipment and energy, such as oil, from Russia, enabling the war in Ukraine. Trump said that tax will apply as of August 1st, although he has yet to reveal how high it will be.
A sigh of relief for millions of people in coastal areas surrounding the Pacific Ocean, including British Columbia, where its tsunami threat has been declared over. Concern about the massive waves followed a major 8.8 magnitude earthquake in far eastern Russia overnight. Local media are reporting that several people sought medical help after the earthquake, but no serious injuries have been reported. Russian scientists say this was one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit the region since 1952. Russia has canceled tsunami alerts for coastal areas in the far eastern parts of the country. Tsunami heights of between 3 and 5 meters have been reported in the Kamchatka Peninsula. That area of Russia is sparsely populated, and there are no reports of any significant damage. And as we mentioned, tsunami warnings were issued for many areas in the Pacific Basin, including Hawaii, California, and Japan. Waves of nearly 2 meters were reported in Hawaii. Those tsunami warnings have since been downgraded. There have also been dozens of aftershocks in the hours following that initial earthquake. The largest was magnitude 6.9, and Russian media are reporting that a volcano in Russia's far east, the tallest active volcano in all of Eurasia, has been erupting.
After moves by France and the UK, the federal government is also considering the possibility of recognizing Palestinian statehood. Global Affairs Canada is prepared to recognize a Palestinian state at the time most conducive to lasting peace, not necessarily as the last step along the path to achieving the two-state solution. Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet will discuss the topic today. Western nations are facing increased pressure to formally recognize a Palestinian state after both France and the UK said they plan to do so in September amid the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The U.S. president weighed in on the situation yesterday on Air Force One.
There's nothing you can say other than it's terrible when you see the kids. And those are kids, you know, whether they talk starvation or not, those are kids that are starving. I mean, they are starving. And you see the mothers, they love them so much. And there's just nothing they seem to be able to do. They got to get them food.
This comes as countries continue to carry out airdrops of food aid into Gaza. Although humanitarian organizations warn urgent action is needed to avoid mass starvation, Israel has claimed reports of widespread hunger are being overblown.
A multi-faith vigil was held last night to honor the victims of New York's deadliest shooting in a quarter century.
I love New York. That big red heart in the middle of it. You see it everywhere. Tonight, my friends, that heart is broken.
The interfaith prayer vigil led by New York Governor Kathy Hochul and New York Mayor Eric Adams featured voices from several religious communities. Hundreds gathered in the ceremony mourning the four victims of Monday evening's mass shooting.
Two men accused in the sale of forgeries of the late Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseau have pleaded guilty to their roles in a multi-million-dollar art fraud ring. CTV's Mike Arcelides has the details.
78-year-old David Paul Bremner admitted to being part of an art forgery network by producing certificates of authenticity for artworks falsely marketed and sold as genuine pieces by Norval Morrisseau. Morrisseau, often called the Picasso of the North, is widely recognized as the grandfather of contemporary Indigenous art in Canada. As part of his guilty plea, Bremner admitted to producing and using forged documents related to fake Morrisseau artworks, as well as possessing property obtained through crime with the intent to traffic it. Bremner admitted he authenticated appraised and or otherwise handled artworks provided by one of his co-accused, Jeff Cowan. The allegations against Cowan have not been tested in court. Jim White, who is now 84, pleaded guilty in June. White, who is from Essa Township, was at the center of it all, involved in marketing and selling hundreds of fake Morrisseau art around the world, some pieces sold for tens of thousands of dollars. White pleaded guilty to producing forged documents and to possession and trafficking of more than 500 pieces of fake art. Two others co-accused pleaded guilty last year and were sentenced to 5 years in prison. As part of his plea, Bremner admitted to turning a blind eye to suspicions that the works were forgeries. He took inadequate further steps to verify their authenticity and proceeded to authenticate the art anyway. Some pieces he authenticated sold for more than $30,000, with another fetching close to $100,000. Bremner admitted he knew his certificates were being used to authenticate and legitimize the artwork, and that his certificates were relied upon by White and others to sell the pieces, despite him never having received formal training to authenticate the Morrisseau works. Bremner, the court heard, collected about $150 from the sale of each piece. 900 pieces were seized as part of the joint investigation by Thunder Bay Police and the OPP. Bremner and White are scheduled to be sentenced next month. Mike Arcelides, CTV News, Barrie.
Well, something you may notice about our 7-day forecast upcoming is, yes, it's not going to be as hot, but it's also looking quite dry around here. And even though we have had more than our monthly average rainfall for July here in the city of Toronto, a lot of that rain fell at once. So we haven't had multiple rainy days or a slow soaking. That's usually pretty good for lawns and gardens. There is still an opportunity that we could get hit by this disturbance before the month is finished. But as you can see, looks like it's just going to skirt by the GTA. Coming up, we'll talk about the timing of this and take you through the dry but lovely long weekend forecast. That's after the break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
All right, back to the forecast, and we've kind of gotten used to the extreme heat. And I went outside this morning. I thought to myself, it's warm, but not extremely hot. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, the temperature not crazy hot, and certainly with the overcast skies, it was really making a difference without that scorching sun that we've seen the last few days.
If you've been waiting for a break, I know many people have. Some of this heat has been pretty extreme and prolonged. Just wait until tomorrow. But you're right, today we do notice a difference already. Tomorrow, low humidity, comfortable temperatures, dare I even say below seasonal. And that will be the case for a couple of days heading into what I think is still going to be a pretty comfortable long weekend overall. We just have to get through this afternoon, and then I suspect that the heat warning will come to an end. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Today, we've had another pleasant start to the day. We've had some sun, perhaps a little more cloud today compared to the last couple as well. And something you may notice later on this afternoon into this evening and perhaps at times tomorrow is an increase in haze. We're paying attention to not only drifting wildfire smoke, but of course air pollution as a result of the hot, humid summer we've been having. And today we have special air quality statements in effect across northern parts of Ontario. And we have widespread air quality warnings still across northwestern Ontario and parts of the prairies, specifically Manitoba and parts of Saskatchewan. Drifting smoke, again, something we're going to watch for the coming days. We do anticipate a little bit of an increase in smoke through tonight and tomorrow, and then perhaps as we make our way through the second half of the long weekend. A little bit of clearing in between that. Air quality health index for today, we expect to be at about a 5, which is a moderate risk for us. So just take care. If even though the heat and humidity is starting to become less, you may notice the air quality being a little poor out there at times over the next 24 or so hours. It is 28 degrees right now at Pearson Airport. It feels like 33. I mentioned that this heat warning has been shrinking somewhat, but there's what's left of it. Toronto over toward Hamilton and Niagara Falls, and then some sections of eastern Ontario still within a warning criteria as well. Today's high, so at the peak of the afternoon, we expect that we will be around 31 degrees, feeling like 38, so not quite feeling like 40s anymore. And then your evening at a glance, perhaps you're heading out to play a round of tennis or maybe enjoy watching a round yourself. You can anticipate that the temperature is still going to be quite warm. It's into the overnight hours that we finally experience a bit of a break. So 19 for the low. This is close to seasonal. Mostly cloudy skies, bit of haze, and the chance of some wet weather as we make our way into tomorrow. So let's talk about that next. Tomorrow afternoon, though, 25 degrees. What a difference a day makes. Low humidity might feel like 28. Here's the satellite and radar. I mentioned some of that cloud. A couple of showers starting to initiate in southwest Ontario. I will step aside so you can see the disturbance that we're watching for tomorrow, potentially bringing us some much needed rain. Doesn't look like it's going to have a huge impact on us right now in the GTA. I'd probably put the couch and patio cushions away tonight, but here's how things look for this afternoon. Just chance of some scattered showers. There's the overnight hours and into Thursday morning. This is going to clear out quite quickly. So again, not a prolonged soaking rain, but hopefully just enough to give maybe your flowers a bit of a drink. Then we're going to clear out and dry out as we make our way into the long weekend. So 25 degrees and sunshine for Friday, a run of sun that continues right through to the holiday Monday, and temperatures pretty comfortable, but we do see a slight bump in heat for Sunday and into Monday. That's the weather for now. Natalie, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And amid the heat warning, some City of Toronto staff refused to work at 2 indoor pools yesterday, citing unsafe conditions because of heat and humidity.
Today, both the union and the city are pledging to work together to resolve the situation. But as of now, at least one of the pools remains closed. The union representing city workers says both pools at Main Square in the east and Birchmount in Scarborough recorded indoor temperatures between 40 to 45 degrees. The union says indoor pools are just too hot, arguing it's part of a larger problem with maintenance and repairs at city facilities. Workers refused to work yesterday, forcing the closure of the facilities. Birchmount Pool remains closed today, and the city has not provided an update on the status of Main Square. Today, the office of the mayor released a statement which reads in part, Torontonians need places to keep cool during heat waves. Pools need to be open in safe condition for both residents and workers. The mayor has made it clear she'll take whatever action is necessary to keep pools open for Torontonians and protect worker safety. Upon receiving the media advisory, we reached out to the union and have already agreed to work with them to resolve their specific concerns and ensure the indoor pools stay open. And in response, the union released this statement. The city appears to be taking steps to address the unsafe conditions at Main Square and Birchmount pools, ensuring the health and safety of frontline staff and the public must be a top priority, and will continue to monitor conditions closely to make sure the necessary fixes are made and that no worker is put at risk.
Still to come this hour, pharmacists are being forced to limit painkillers across the country. Details on how the shortage is impacting Canadians after the break.
A warning about a shortage of common painkillers impacting patients across the country.
Some pharmacists are sounding the alarm, saying they are now having to limit prescriptions, meaning some people aren't getting the medication they need. CTV's Sean Varden has the details.
So this is your medication. Do you have any questions? Ottawa pharmacist Mohammed Al-Hawane is seeing the direct impact of drug shortages in Canada.
We do have a cancer patient who depend on a monthly supply of one of their medications, the oxycodone and Tylenol. It's called Percocet, or the generic of it. Unfortunately, we had to delay the dispensing until the doctor replies and give us an alternative.
Right now, common pain medications like Tylenol 3 and Percocet and related drugs are in short supply.
These meds are designed to help with breakthrough pain. Usually they have long-acting pain medications for their chronic problems, but they take these meds for something called breakthrough pain, so it has to be there.
Health Canada says the current shortage is temporary due to manufacturing disruptions and increased demand, and is working with manufacturers, distributors, provinces, and territories to monitor the situation and explore options to increase access. The Neighbourhood Pharmacy Association of Canada says these shortages happen regularly with all kinds of medications. Finding alternatives can take time and can sometimes only be done by a doctor. They say expanded powers for pharmacists could help.
So if pharmacists had expanded scope to do more and be recognized as practitioners in the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, they could support patients more with prescribing, with dosage changes.
It's something some patients favor.
Pharmacists are totally capable of replacing, substituting medication. That's what they do.
Health Canada says the current shortage should be resolved sometime in August. Until then, patients will have to cope, hoping their medication won't be impacted by the next shortage. Sean Varden, CTV News.
Researchers say they have made significant progress in treating a common knee issue.
The condition often requires knee replacement, but as CTV's Rita Ishmael reports, with this new approach, that may not be necessary.
Knee osteoarthritis affects people around the world, bringing pain, stiffness, and eventually joint replacement surgery for many. But a new study led by researchers at Western University and the Fowler Kennedy Sport Medicine Clinic is offering hope.
The surgeons will try to intervene earlier in the disease process than later, after the patient is not improving with good non-operative care. So in the surgery, they'll take that malaligned limb, so that bowed limb, and actually straighten it to shift loads away from that most damaged compartment of the knee.
The 2-year clinical trial followed 145 patients, comparing those who had high tibial osteotomy, or HTO, along with non-surgical therapy, to those who had therapy alone. The results were clear. HTO slowed joint damage, reduced pain, and improved movement, offering the first real evidence that a treatment can actually change the course of osteoarthritis.
Surgery has a long-standing history, many decades. It actually has roots in a lot of countries in Europe, and we actually had the original procedures being done here by Dr. Peter Fowler.
While HTO is less common than joint replacement, the study's authors say it deserves renewed attention, especially for people in their 50s with specific alignment issues.
The study also has wider implications in that it shows if you improve the biomechanics acting on the joint, you can actually alter the course of osteoarthritis.
The procedure isn't for everyone, but for the right patients, it could delay or even prevent knee replacement. Rita Ismail, CTV News.
The Home of Metal is honoring the life of Ozzy Osbourne today. Thousands of fans lined the funeral procession route in Birmingham, England, to pay their respects to the Black Sabbath frontman. Fans have made pilgrimages to sites around Birmingham since Osbourne's death was announced, and family members of the music legend greeted them as they gathered to bid farewell.
Very emotional. Obviously, been a Black Sabbath fan for a long time, watched the Osbournes on the TV. So we've grown up with these being in our homes, so they're like our family, you know? Yeah. So basically it's like a big loss, especially after a few weeks ago he's done the Back to the Beginning tour, which unfortunately I couldn't make. But I'm glad to be here today with people who are like-minded, who adored him and adore the family, and we want to show our support today for him and his family.
Because Ozzy was an absolute legend. He's a soundtrack, particularly my life growing up. If you're a metalhead, he is and Black Sabbath are the originators of heavy metal and such great music. And he dared to be different because he was different.
The Crazy Train singer died last week at age 76 following years of health struggles. His death came just weeks after he reunited with his Black Sabbath bandmates in Birmingham for a concert.
A long-awaited sequel had a strong debut on streaming several decades after its original film.
My name is Happy Gilmore. 30 years ago, I decided to give golf a try.
Adam Sandler returns in Happy Gilmore 2, which launched on Netflix last Friday. The company says it garnered 46.7 million views over its first 3 days, and that would make it the biggest U.S. opening weekend of all time for a Netflix film. The sequel also prompted interest in the first Happy Gilmore, which ranked in the top 3 globally for a second consecutive week.
Still to come this hour, social media platforms can be a source for ads and what can seem like good deals, but it can also circulate scams. What to look out for, coming up after the break. Most major social media platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, feature ads selling products and services.
The ads often have extremely low prices, offering great deals, but police are warning some of them are scams you need to watch out for. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
Well, it seemed greatly discounted.
Keith Edwards of Bowmanville says he was on Facebook when he noticed an ad for an electric bike. It had a list price of $900 US, but was heavily discounted to just $92.
Who wouldn't want a bargain for an e-bike that looked solid? I'm a regular cyclist, and I just thought this would be a great help.
Edwards bought the bike in January, and after 6 months of trying to contact the company and getting nowhere, he's resigned to the fact he'll probably never get it and was scammed.
This type of discounted, severely discounted products that are totally bogus.
CTV News has done stories on social media ads involving the sale of mobility scooters, lawn mowers, and garden sheds that are all sold at extremely low prices but never show up. Sometimes luxury clothing will arrive, but it's actually a cheap knockoff.
York Regional Police recently posted a warning about a social media scam involving hot air balloon rides. You could pay $45 in advance to ride in a hot air balloon, but when victims showed up at a local park, no one was there.
There were no balloons set up. There's no staff from this Candle Experience company on site to assist them with their purchase.
Police issued the warning to remind people just because something is for sale on a social media website, it doesn't mean it's legit.
You have to be mindful of ads that do pop up.
To avoid sponsored ad scams, confirm you're on a legitimate website, use caution buying through social media shops, contact a company in advance of a purchase, be suspicious of massive discounts and deals that seem too good to be true. CTV News contacted Meta, the parent company of Facebook, about the bike ad Edwards used, but we did not get a response. He plans to be more careful in the future.
I just urge other consumers to be duly warned.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
The federal government is doing away with work cell phones for some employees in an effort to dial back spending on mobile devices.
As CTV's Caitlin Wilson reports, while some say it's a smart move, others say they can't do their job without a phone in their hand.
There's an app I can put on my phone that effectively emulates my desk phone here.
At this high-tech recruitment firm, being reachable isn't a bonus, it's the business.
We're constantly on the phone calling all the time, you know. If we're not calling candidates, we're calling customers.
For David Gorman and his team, the cell phone isn't just a tool. It's how relationships are built, leads are landed, and deals get done.
If you leave a voicemail for somebody and they decide to call you back, you want to be there to catch the phone, take the call, you know, because if you miss the call, you might not get another chance at it.
But in the public service, the federal government is dialing back on both cell phones and landlines and replacing them with soft phones, which allow employees to make calls from desktops or laptops in order to cut costs.
When we have a government now that has a very large deficit and is trying to rein that in, when they're ordering all of their departments to find cost savings, taking the phones and ditching them is an easy way to do it, especially when there's alternatives out there that we've learned.
Concordia economics professor Moshe Lander says even his own university, like many businesses, is following suit.
What prof is in the office anymore 9 to 5 and is taking student phone calls or so they said, forget it. Like, use Teams if you want to interact with each other.
During the last fiscal year, Shared Services Canada spent nearly $90 million on mobile phones, which they say will still be provided when necessary, and some public servants don't seem to mind.
The phone is typically more for traveling. Most of us don't really do a lot of traveling, so I personally don't really see a need for a work phone, even though they're issued automatically.
And while critics argue many public servants will end up using their personal phones, raising privacy concerns, for those outside the public sector, the phone isn't always optional.
I know myself, I need my cell phone anyways, because this is how I sent my papers. Anyways, I'm a long-distance truck driver, and that's how I sent my papers.
Caitlin Wilson, CTV News.
Well, the Toronto Blue Jays are struggling to snap a mini losing streak.
Fly ball to right field. Going back is Lucas. It's in and out of his glove, and it's right at his feet. And Henderson is racing home with a go-ahead run.
They're hoping to avoid a fourth straight loss when they played the second game of a doubleheader in Baltimore last night. The Orioles took the lead in the 8th inning, and the Jays were unable to rally in the 9th, falling 3-2. Meanwhile, the Jays made their first move ahead of Thursday's trade deadline, acquiring reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez from the Orioles. Video posted to social media showed him walking underneath the stadium at the opposing clubhouse in between games yesterday. The team sent a minor leaguer to Baltimore in exchange for Dominguez, who pitched a scoreless inning in the Blue Jays' debut last night.
Canada Soccer has launched a fan membership program to give people with deep pockets a shot at seeing Team Canada play at the 2026 World Cup. It's called Canada Red, and it is the exclusive platform to apply for Canada Soccer's World Cup ticket allotment. The first 2 tiers of membership are free, but the more you pay, the better your odds are to get a ticket. The top tier of the program costs $5,000. There is no guarantee all Canada Red members will land tickets.
Denis Shapovalov was in action last night at the National Bank Open.
Well, Leonard Tien doesn't mind the big stage, does he?
Shapovalov took on Leonard Tien in the round of 64. Shapovalov fell to his American counterpart in straight sets, ending his run at the tournament early. And Toronto teenager Victoria Mboko is advancing to the 3rd round of the National Bank Open women's tournament in Montreal after defeating another top player last night. She beat 23rd seeded American Sophia Kenin 6-2, 6-3 in 80 minutes.
Coming up, some popular comedians are coming to the city in the fall for the return of the Just for Laughs Festival. We'll have the funny details after the break. Just for Laughs is returning to the city this fall. Popular comedians including Gabriel Iglesias, Sarah Millican, and Maria Bamford will take the stage at venues throughout the city. The festival runs from September 18th to the 27th, with tickets going on sale to the public on Thursday. Just for Laughs Toronto was canceled last year because of restructuring in the company behind the festival.
I'm glad it's coming back. We can all use a good laugh.
That's right. Nothing like a good comedy show to really lighten the mood.
Absolutely. Nothing too funny about this weather forecast, though, but I think some people might like what they hear regardless. As we make our way through the rest of the day today, still a bit humid, still a bit warm, not quite what we experienced recently, but here's one more look at what you can expect. Heading into the night, we're actually going to slip below that 20-degree threshold, so perhaps a little more comfortable. We do anticipate some hazy skies, not just tonight, but into tomorrow. Some clearing happens through tomorrow afternoon. This is after we potentially get a bit of a round of rain into tomorrow morning. And then our forecast daytime high for tomorrow afternoon is 25. Let's skip ahead to the weekend and your Caribbean Carnival forecast. Things are looking good for Friday, Saturday, and for Sunday. Hey, Monday looks great, too, for your civic holiday plans. Overall, a pretty dry but not bad-looking 7-day forecast. Nathan and Natalie.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. I'm Natalie Johnson.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.